I'm getting used to telling the stories about the songs, and we have one song that we're recording right now. And when I wrote it, I remember thinking, man, these lyrics, they really hit home. And I've gone back recently and listened to them and have no fucking idea what they mean.
Welcome to the Etowah Valley.
You're listening to Etowah Valley Recordings, conversations and music from the Etowah Valley and neighboring Georgia towns.
Thank you to both of you guys for taking the time to come up here. They've made the trek up here to Cartersville, Georgia, and I really appreciate it because I love to have people come in and sit down and do this. I could do it anywhere, but you know it's nice to have some company come up and then do it in my spot up here. Today we're going to hear from Bradley Cole Smith and his songwriting partner Nelson Nolen, and we'll just jump right in with you, Bradley. Tell the people a little about yourself and where you're from.
I grew up in Atlanta, kind of the Sandy Springs area, which appears to be kind of unique. Kind of a suburban upbringing, and I did not have much music at all in my family. We had my mother played a little bit of piano, and right by the door where you walked into my house, the piano was sitting right there. And I probably walked by it 15,000 times growing up and maybe tinkered with it, playing chopsticks. I just never had much interest. And then in about 8th grade, I went over to a friend's house, and he had a guitar sitting there, and I picked it up, and that was it. I think I could play the bass line for Another One Bites the Dust, just right off the bat. Just the feel of it and being able to pick it up. And with the piano, perhaps I could have sat down and done that bass line, but I picked up the guitar and one string and just saw that I could move my hand up and down it and fret it. And I guess just like anything that somebody picks up and has a passion for, immediately it just drew me in.
It resonated with you.
And it still does. Pretty much all of the writing that I do starts with playing the guitar and coming up with a melody on the guitar, and then kind of humming or just ad-libbing lyrics over that. And then I'll go back and try to write something that makes sense. And sometimes I'm successful. I mean, my big influence was I was very influenced by the Allman Brothers around the time that I got out of college. What I love about bands like the Grateful Dead or the Allman Brothers, and not to take away from any other bands, but I think it's rooted in the song, which is an obvious thing. But there are a lot of bands out there that jam for the sake of jamming without a good song. But I like to write songs. I would like to say that I'm the best guitar player out there, but unfortunately I cannot. And I spend more time writing songs than I do practicing my chops on the guitar. So.
Sometimes you need help from up above.
I put out a solo record under Bradley Cole Smith, and what I wanted to do was just write the best songs I could. Similar to when our recent EP, I mean, that's what I've kept doing is...
And that was Bradley Cole Smith is how that was, the thing that I played trumpet on.
Yeah.
I'm so oblivious. I was fortunate enough to get to play some trumpet on Bradley's EP.
Yep.
Was EP that he recorded with Paul Warner. At the time, I lived in a little house across the street from Paul over kind of in the Lakewood area. Side note, you asked me earlier one of the reasons I moved up here. That house was one of the reasons I moved up here. That was the final straw.
I think this spot is a little more peaceful.
It was funny. We were in there with Paul, and it's like, God, man, I wish we knew. Well, Christopher plays trumpet, man. I'll call him up.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, where does he live?
I know this guy that lives in a little hobbit house across the street. One of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, I was explaining earlier, is and I want to make sure I'm careful how I word this because I don't fault anyone. I really respect anyone that can, A, have a business and make money, and B, play music in any way. But the trend these days, as I'm sure a lot of folks are aware of, is tribute bands. And tribute bands take cover bands to the next level in that they only play the songs of one particular band, and they try to play them as closely as it is to the record, generally speaking. Sometimes they even wear costumes, etc. You know, it's very successful right now. People show up for that, and I totally, you know, I see a lot of great musicians doing tribute. And the reason I'm telling that whole story is that I want to encourage people to continue to make new connections with new artists and new music. And I feel like a great way to make that connection is hear a little bit about the artist and see what kind of people are out here making great new art so that you can make new connections with music. And I think that it's great to have memories, and it's great to reminisce about songs that you grew up with. But I just hopefully with this little podcast, I'm trying to encourage everyone to make those new connections.
Last year we played the 30A Songwriters Festival, which I know you were at as well, and that was fantastic. And that's one thing that I would recommend to anybody who loves original live music, as we were talking about, or as you were talking about, trying to get out there, because you go down there and every time I've been there, I see acts that I would never see. And you just happen into a place.
And you're referring, when you say down there, you're talking about the 30A Festival.
30A Festival,
It's a great
yeah,
festival.
down in Grayton Beach area.
Yeah, I've been able to go down there with the Sweet Tea Project. You guys know
Yeah.
I'm part of that.
Yeah,
And,
we tried to get in to see you.
Yeah,
And then we went to our gig.
the talent down there is
It's unbelievable. It's just music for 4 days, and it's awesome. The talent level and the way that it's done.
We're opening up for Paul Thorne. I don't know if you've seen.
I do
him,
know that
him.
name. What?
He's a great songwriter. He's from Louisiana, isn't he?
I think Mississippi, I believe.
Mississippi. Well, he was a boxer back in the day. He fought Roberto Duran. Yeah. And anyway, so I at the 30A Songwriters Festival, I went down to see John Driscoll Hopkins on a Sunday, and it was packed, and I couldn't get in. So I'm walking back, and I hear this music back behind the venue, and we walk back there and see him, and just blown away. And I didn't recognize his name. I wouldn't have happened in there, and it just incredible. This song has been around for a while, and that's I guess an interesting thing that I do. Sometimes I'll write a song and I'll say, I finish the song and think, I don't know. I'm not really sure if that's one we want to play. And then about 3 years later, I'll play it and go, hey, that was kind of good. I don't want to spell it out too much, but in my head, it's a father or something talking to a child who's kind of gone astray, teenager or something like that. But I guess the reason I didn't want to say that is because I don't want to put that in somebody's head. But it's basically somebody who's maybe not going down the right path.
It could be a friend. It could be a girlfriend or a boyfriend. It could be a son or daughter.
Yeah,
it could be anyone that's special to you that you care about.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Will you write down that description of the song so I can read it?
Glad I could clarify it all. But yeah, you said I got the meaning from what you said.
Also, the thing has like a good little sing-along melody of it. It's not like a serious song. It's a fun song that you kind of sing along with.
All right, 1, 2. I could tell by the way she looked at me, something had gone wrong. But the kicker was the way that she held my gaze when the soaps came back on. I could tell by the things she didn't say, we'd been soaked in gasoline, and the fire in her eyes threw a spark that landed in the puddle at my feet. Na 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 na. It's 1,000 miles ahead of you. Love you long to find.
But your heart, it races as you chase and chase what you think will ease your mind. But you never were one for trying, so you give up on that bliss. Hope it jumps your bones and you move home when you're least expecting it. Tell me what you're looking for. Have you found it yet? Found the cream at the bottom of your TV set. There'll be times when you feel like dime store gin. Then again, na 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 pictures when we're young. We hear a lot of stories about happiness and love. And now we're pushing 40 and there's nothing going on. Nothing going on. Let's take a drive into town. Come back in a few. Better yet, we could walk in and do a little talking like we used to do. Tell me what you're looking for. Have you found it yet? There's no Tootsie Pop center in the back of that Corvette. There'll be times when you feel like dime store gin. Then again, there'll be times when you feel like giving in. Then again.
I remember Double Wide. Tell me a little bit more about that.
We started that band in Colorado in 1991. I went to the University of Georgia, and when I got out of there, I moved out there with some friends, and we moved out there to kind of play après-ski music. We had acoustic guitars, and we started playing, and then we got a bass player, and we got a drummer, and ended up traveling around Colorado playing, and we were out there for about 2 years, and then we moved back to Atlanta and played for 4 or 5 years. When we moved back to Atlanta from Colorado,
I was here.
Nelson was here, and his brother was opening Smith's Old Bar, and we were playing. Double I was playing around, and Nelson was playing with bands, and we played at the Chameleon Club and Smith's Old Bar and all those haunts, and so we kind of wove in and out of bands we were playing. And then in about 2000, 99 or 2000, we played the city stages over in Birmingham.
Big festival.
And we had a guitar player playing with us, and for some reason he couldn't make it. And I called Nelson and said, "Hey, man, you want to play the gig?" And he said, "Yeah," and that was it.
Well, they're a really, really good band, and it was funny. A lot of people would always go see them. So if I didn't have a gig, I would go see them. And I knew the set list, and it was funny because Bradley was... We knew each other. We were very, very good friends, but we hadn't played a whole lot of music together. And he says, "Well, listen, can you do it this date?" And I'm from Alabama, so I knew about the festival. I had been to the city stages. We were playing 2 slots in front of Dwight Yoakam. Probably about 1,200 people were going to be in the big stage thing. So I was jumping at the opportunity for that. And he goes, "Man, do you know the songs?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I know the songs, Bradley." It's like, I've seen you guys 10 times, and I go home and practice them in my room.
That's amazing. See?
So it was like,
preparation meets opportunity, right there, kids.
Kind of, yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's been fun. We had a lot of fun and had a lot of good creative things, and we feel like we've made made some good art, and things are good. It's fun.
Nelson, would you mind telling the folks a
Yeah,
little bit about
yeah,
yourself?
sure. Thank you for asking. Originally Norfolk, Virginia. My father was in the Navy, and he retired from the Navy. Our family is from Alabama, a large family. I've got 29 first cousins, and and we're all from eastern Alabama, Cheahaw Mountain, Clay County area. Very musically inclined in the family on my father's side. My grandmother, Kathleen Moody Nolen, brilliant organ and piano player. She was actually sent to the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music in about 1910.
Wow.
And at the time was the Juilliard of music in the United States. And she was just a little kid. And she's from Birmingham, Alabama. As a kid, I just will never forget, she and about 20-year-old grandkids would be sitting around. She had this big old piano, the big 10-footer, like Elton John or something, man. It's red carpets, high ceilings, and she would just play music all the time. She had a pump organ, which is actually in my house with the foot pumps. That's come down through the family to me, actually made it my way. And I had an interest in guitar when I was about 12 or 13. I'd get in and listen to my older brother's records, Exile on Main Street, Beatles. And then when I could get my own records, it was spinning vinyl the whole time. ELO's Out of the Blue, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, all their early records. I love those a lot. I would get my brother's Boss, Skaggs records, and all kinds of cool stuff, rock and roll, and I really, really liked it. I'm very lucky to have many, many close friends with many different talents and interests, but a big part of it is my musician friends.
Yeah.
And because I do love it so much, and I think we were talking earlier about collaboration. And that's a big deal with me because it's if you can play music with someone and have it where it's a team effort, it is super fun for me. And for me, it always seems to last.
I've spent a lot of time writing songs just by myself, and this the Hilltop EP recently, Nelson had a lot bigger part in the arrangements and stuff, and it's always better.
And again, I guess it goes back to me, for the relationships.
The purposes of branding and being able to market a product, you've got to put a title to it. You've got to have a name to it. And, if you want to call it Bradley Cole Smith, that's fine, I guess. I mean, whatever. Has a certain ring to it,
I have a running joke that I have my name up there because I'm playing with all these guys who are better than me, so I got to prop myself up. And there's actually some truth to that. I mean,
you don't want to be the best guy in the room. You want to have guys that are actually better than you. So,
Man, brother.
it's amazing to watch that and see how that works. I was fortunate enough to work with Bruce Hampton for several months before he passed over at the Vista Room, and that man is a shining example of that conversation. Colonel Bruce Hampton's, who we're talking about. If you never heard anything about him, you might want to check him out. I mean, he has had an amazing career. He was in the movie Sling Blade.
Oh, good quick story. My nephew Bo and I took him to see that movie at Phipps Plaza, and we were right in the front row. And he sat there with a big, huge smile on his face because he couldn't drive. His leg was messed up. He was good friends with my brother Dan, and so Bo was kind of driving Bruce around that time. It's been many years when that movie came out, but because he was buddies with Billy Bob Thornton,
Right.
Who was the drummer for the Hampton Grease Band, and he says, "Well, we just spent 2 months in Arkansas, and there was cameras around, and they just let it rip, And he had never seen the movie, and he's got a 3-minute monologue in it. We took him to Johnny Rockets because he wanted a hamburger, and then we took him into the movie at Phipps, and it was right there in the front row, and he couldn't believe it, and we couldn't either. It was an awesome movie. And then we were walking out of the theater, and people were like, were you? They'd really never seen it before, and it's a close up, and it was just so funny. We were leaving there, and I was like, Bo, who can say they took Bruce Hampton to see Sling Blade?
To watch himself for the first time.
His eyes were like freaking saucers, man. He couldn't believe it. He was so happy because he had never seen that. None of it. He said, None of them had ever seen any clips of any kind, and the thing comes on, and the thing won an Oscar or two, you know, and it was just amazing.
If you folks listening don't know anything about Bruce Hampton, please look him up. He actually lived here in Cartersville, right down the street.
Awesome.
When he was a kid. I don't know how many years he lived here, but he lived here. And when I told him I was moving out here, he goes, "Oh, Cartersville, Georgia. They still have the gold on the dome down there in the courthouse." You know, magical musicians were drawn to him, and it really was impressive to watch that all happen. Thank you, guys. Are you gonna play one more song for me, and then we'll wrap this thing up?
Yeah.
Y'all are awesome.
Thanks for
Thank you,
us.
Christopher.
Man,
You're the man, bud. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So this song is called Biloxi, and I was at a friend's wedding down in Biloxi. The bride was from Pascagoula, Mississippi, and we stayed at a casino the whole weekend, and it was a good time. But it was probably 4 a.m. or something, and I was in the casino gambling, and I went to the restroom, and this guy pulled up in the stall next to me, and he started talking to himself about how he just lost his rent money for the next month, and so a couple of weeks later, I sat down, and this song was born. It was one of those that just, you know, as they say, they just come out of the air. And I think I wrote this in about 15 minutes. So this is called Biloxi.
Dealer scoops all my winnings up. I am broken. I stare at the ground at all my cigarette butts. It's a pretty good run, I tell myself. Maybe next time. Little voice in the back of my head knows that man just took my rent, my food, and my clothes. So take my drink and all of my doubts. I can hear the cameras follow me as I stumble out. Raise my eyes to the morning sky. Tell the clouds as they slowly pass by. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I used to scribble on all the walls of all the classrooms in my grammar school. I held court in the playground, and I'd act the fool, but everybody loved me. Everybody knew I was going places. I bet they never did think I'd end up in this parking lot, spreading my arms to the morning sky, telling the clouds as they slowly pass by. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Tell me that in heaven there are no bills to pay. Everything is yours and there's no money to be made, and everybody loves you just as you are, be it a beggar or a banker or a movie star. So I'll save all my effort, I will do as I please. I think I'll hit the strip and beg from my knees. Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. Just you wait and see, and I will scream at the skies above Biloxi. I'm on my way. I'm on my way.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, man, thank
What a great time.
This is Christopher Allen Yates, and you've been listening to the Etowah Valley Recording Podcast, recorded live in historic Cartersville, Georgia. Our special guests have been Bradley Cole Smith and Nelson Nolen. To learn more about upcoming shows, please visit us at EtowahValleyRecordings.com.